Fans, welcome to this episode of Nerd Words. A little bit today about the movie Maleficent. It was a pretty good retelling of the whole Sleeping Beauty story.
Yeah, basically, I'm going to assume the popularity of Wicked is why they decided to do this. Wicked, of course, being the telling of the Wizard of Oz from the point of view of the Wicked Witch of the West. And as it turns out from Wicked, it's spoiler alert here a little bit. She's the target of a propaganda campaign by the wizard, who's really not very nice. And the Wicked Witch is just a victim of circumstance. Basically, Maleficent is portrayed in the same fashion in this film. Spoiler alert for here, if you've not saw it. She's a good fairy, gets kind of stabbed in the back by someone. Basically becomes a bad guy, but you don't really get the sense that she's terrible. She's just understandably upset over what happens to her in the film.
The battle scene early on in the movie is as good as anything that was in Lord of the Rings or Narnia.
Oh yeah, very, very good. I mean, I expect nothing less out of Disney than top-notch production value. Angelina Jolie's great in it. She's one of my favorite actresses anyway. She's one of the few lead female actresses that can carry action-type films or adventure-type films with no problem. Wonderful-looking Maleficent. And very good acting, very, very well-done film, I thought.
This is not really that much of a spoiler because it's shown in the preview. As good of a dragon as I've seen. I mean, we got to see Smaug in The Hobbit, and that was fantastic. If you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons and fought a powerful dragon, that's what it should be like. And it wasn't quite as much in Maleficent, but they stuck with the whole fairy weakness to iron, even though they didn't portray it as much as it probably should have been.
It was, your classic mythos. You see, I guess it could be sort of set to the other side. I don't really necessarily think that it had that much to do with the Sleeping Beauty from the animated version. Obviously vastly different than the very adult fairy tale Sleeping Beauty. Before, fairy tales got kind of made child friendly by Disney back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. Sleeping Beauty, not a very, very kid friendly tale. And the original fairy tales were meant to inspire terror somewhat. Teach moral lessons to children about behaving and things like that. They actually do it effectively if you find the original, stick with them.
Oh, I wrote a paper for somebody once about The Little Mermaid. It's just Hans Christian Andersen wrote some brutal stuff.
Often in the fairy tales, the bad guy actually wins. There's none of this pushing the witch in the oven and Hansel and Gretel and things like that necessarily. And this was a good tale of Maleficent. That's just all I'll say about it. I would recommend going and seeing it.
Oh, I definitely recommend it. I mean, out of 5 stars, I'd give it a solid 3.5.
I probably gave it 3.5, 4 from my point of view. Groups of people we saw it with pretty much all liked it, I think. I said Chris, our erstwhile director, producer, movie guru,
also happens to be a hockey fan.
a little soured on the experience because his hockey team was eliminated from the playoffs during the film. But he later said he liked it probably a little better than he thought at the time. He was just mad over that. It's well worth seeing. It's still playing here in town. Hopefully you can get down to see it. I say Angelina Jolie, great job by her. And the bad guys are bad guys. She has, as I said, very good reason, it seems, for doing what she did. I probably thought she should have done a little bit more than what she did. She seems to be vastly powerful at times in the film and not as powerful at other times. But I guess being around iron could have weakened her some. But you'll see all that play out in the film. But overall, I'd say 3.5, 4 stars out of me. So I recommend it.
I would definitely recommend anybody to see it. It's one of those, I saw it, I enjoyed it. If I happen to catch it on TV, I'll watch it. I probably won't seek it out to see again. But there's not a ton of movies I seek out to see again. Outside of, the classics, Star Wars, The Wrath of Khan, Battle Beyond the Stars, stuff like that.
Flash Gordon. Lord. But, that's pretty much, yeah, I could see it becoming a Disney classic. I don't think it's gonna do the box office. Earlier in the year, I saw that they said it may become the box office juggernaut that Frozen did for Disney, but I don't think it's gonna do that. I've not saw Frozen. I'm not a huge fan of most animated films, but from what the people I know that saw Frozen said it was excellent. It was probably Disney's biggest movie of the year. So,
And it seems like, I mean, it's just the nature of it, their live action stuff just doesn't do as well. Like, I mean, The Bomb, that was John Carter, Warlord of Mars, which was actually a good movie.
Maleficent has done pretty well. It opened #1 at the box office, but Frozen's just a global sensation.
It is. I see stuff on social media about people singing songs from Frozen.
Frozen was #1 at the box office in Japan for around 12 consecutive weeks, or something like that. It's made almost $1.5 billion around the world. But I don't think Maleficent will get there to that level, as some people predicted it earlier will. Disney, though, still around the #2, #3 money-making studio, just from their movie wing. We'll see if, how that affects future films, how their future live-action projects. They have a series of I think they're making an actual, I believe Cinderella, I think they said was coming out pretty soon, and maybe The Jungle Book, and a few other live-action films like that.
Jungle Book, that's one of my favorites.
So they'll continue making the movies. Of course, the big live-action are their Star Wars and
Avengers
and Ant-Man, which
now kind of up in the air who's going to direct that.
they're having trouble with that. We'll talk about that in a future episode and some of the troubles that they're having. But go see Maleficent. I give it a good recommendation.
Absolutely. And fans, we will see you next time on Nerd Words.